The trip-hop pioneers Massive Attack are known for many things. As I was introduced to them, you might know them for the amazing song Teardrop from the equally amazing album Mezzanine, which, fun fact, is featuring the vocals from Elizabeth Fraser of the Cocktail Twins. But you might have just heard of them for supposedly using live facial recognition, and the quotes are very important, we will unpack that, at one of their recent performances. It appeared as though audience faces from the crowd were paired with randomly assigned attributes, giving some impression that their data and digital inference characteristics were being identified in real time. This was not the case, but because it caused such a ruckus is enough reason for us to take a second look. Hi, I'm Kate. I'm a grumpy young lady and I like privacy. You can interpret this Massive Attack piece as any way you want, which is the beauty of art. But in my eyes, it's a pretty clear statement on our current age of surveillance. Surveillance? You know what I'm trying to say. I can't say that word for some reason properly. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is pretty aware nowadays that our data is constantly being collected, regurgitated, and repackaged back to us. But what's astounding to me time and time again is that no one cares, or at least appears to. One of the reasons why I have to talk to the internet is sometimes I will bring something like this up at a dinner party or a get together at the bar. And I think I come off as a bit more conspiratorial than I'd like to, and maybe I am, who knows, but I think it's just because it's all become more commonplace for this kind of personal data extraction to just be accepted across the board. We've been slowly boiled 1 degree over time like the poor lobster to accept that in order to gain access to the internet or other advertising-based services, we must accept an extreme invasion of privacy. And while using data to serve you more targeted adverts is one thing, I think using it to determine your car insurance price, this actually happens. Definitely check out this video on it, but it will take data like short stops, perceived ramping up and ramping down erratically in order to increase your insurance price, profiting off of your likeness. Surveillance and AI are not the same thing, but I think in many ways they cross bridges that I'm upset about. And one of the things that I'm most imminently worried about is how this technology is being used to target and arrest innocent people. There are numerous cases of this happening, but just this week a 12-year-old was arrested by an armed officer because his bag of Doritos was confused as a gun by AI. This is the timeline that we are living in. These are not exaggerations. These are all things that have already happened. In the case of Massive Attack, it turns out that they were not actually tracking the audience in real time, rather playing a pre-recorded clip that made it look as though it was happening in real time. But it does beg the question, if it was in real time, why aren't we upset about all of the other surveillance that is doing the same thing without our consent or without our knowledge, or at least consciousness of it? So many of these corporations depend on our unawareness, depend on having degrees of separation to obfuscate themselves from any clear anti-human motive. But we need to remember that just because we don't see it as blatantly as Massive Attack was trying to show us, it's already happening. One big battle happening right now is around the use of flock cameras and similar devices, which automatically read license plates and take in video data, package this data as a third party, and sell it back to law enforcement. If you're interested in this topic, I highly recommend checking out Louis Rossman's videos around this. Ben Jordan of the Flashbulb also makes a great video on this. But again, it's the separation, right? Because Flock is a third party, you can be tracked without consent. You are tracked without consent. Your license plate, as well as information where you frequently go, how often you go there, etc., is all being collected and sold without you even knowing about it. And they're not even following the little regulation that is set around the installation of these cameras. In South Carolina, for example, over 200 unpermitted Flock cameras were discovered, leading to a moratorium on new installations. And there's a big if surrounding the effectiveness of these cameras to begin with, right? We know that AI is not infallible, hence so many innocent folks being caught in its crosshairs, not to mention the inherent coding bias that runs rampant across all AI, not just the use of camera data that's being fed back directly to law enforcement. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, so these license plate readers you might see referred to as ALPRs look like this. Once you see them, it's hard to unsee them, and they are everywhere. And this is just the beginning, okay? Those lovely Ring cameras are partnering with Flock AI. I could talk about this forever, but let me get back to the point. We need art to take more risks. I used to find it very puzzling of how around, there's a reason why Recession pop is some of the glitziest, the most glamorous, the most carefree, when that couldn't be farther from the mood of most folks. In a healthy democracy, people feel like they can openly critique without having their personal liberties threatened. And while I gotta say, we've had a lot of great music come out lately. It's been pretty sick. I've been enjoying it. Okay, the new Slater stuff, the new Frost Children stuff. There's so much good stuff. But if we look at the pop charts, I don't feel like there's a lot of stuff either A, saying anything, or B, just trying something new, trying something that might upset you, or most importantly, something that might shake you in a way that makes you think about something else or relate it back to something that you might have missed, or call awareness to maybe something that you might have not thought of. I think that's when art can be at its best. Rosalia Berghain exception. Absolutely. So excited about Lux. And I'm not saying that every artist has to be political or make big statements. Massive Attack has had a long history of being outspoken about Palestine and a lot of other causes over the course of their career, with so much of the art that we consume today being sanitized to where, yeah, maybe the beat feels good, maybe those harmonies, tried and true chord progressions still sound sweet, but without any risk, things feel super hollow. Totally different lane, but another performance that comes to mind from a musician that made a powerful statement, even at the expense of disgust, is Lady Gaga's Swine performance during the Artpop era at the Doritos Lounge at South by Southwest. If you know, you know. All's that to say, I think it's silly to be upset at Massive Attack, because I think the real danger lies in our increasing intolerance for being challenged. Challenged in the way we think, challenged in the way we strive for a better tomorrow. Resistance is beauty, resistance is optimism. Friction is really important. And when so much of our lives is being watched and, in my eyes, manipulated based on that data, we start to get more and more even-toned, numb to the ways in which things can be different, for better or worse. I think it's worth noting that Massive Attack's lovely performance is just a tip of the digital critique iceberg. Okay, I had a great time watching Wall-E last night. But there's also a long, well-documented history of surveillance art. People often credit Andy Warhol for creating the genre with his film Outer and Inner Space, in which the talent interacts with her digital self. And this was in 1966. So, I mean, I feel like a trend that I see everywhere is blob tracking. This aesthetic is born out of the ways in which AI and other surveillance technology uses their data to track people, their possessions, and how we move and groove about the world. Another really cool case was when Arcade Fire released the music video for We Used to Wait. It used all the photos that were collected by Google Maps so that you could put in your address and interact with the music video, experiencing it through the eyes of your hometown. Another person that comes to mind, one half of The Help, Noah Dillon, often uses surveillance camera footage to make art, which I find pretty interesting. Before I get off my soapbox, I wanted to just go over some bullet points here about why you should care about your data being collected. I'm going to link this full post below, but I just wanted to read a few reasons from this Reddit user, which I feel sums it up beautifully. You should care because what is acceptable now could be criminalized later, because companies use your data to charge you more, because your digital footprint can impact your reputation and opportunities for the rest of your life, because assumptions, which can sometimes be inaccurate, are made about you based on your data, and because the more the platforms can collect, the better they can manipulate your behavior. There's a couple more. I highly recommend. This post is great, but it's important. And with the new Grimes song recently on the mind, power is not given, it is taken. I think a lot of us operate within a framework that if something is really bad, there will be powers that be that will work to stop that from happening in a regulated way. And maybe that was more true of the older world. But I think we've kind of bottomed out, at least in the States, for profit. It's just the ceiling's just going to get lower and lower. And so just because something is legal does not mean that it is good. Reading about all of this introduced me to the concept of a pantopticon. What is a pantopticon, you may ask? So a pantopticon is a conceptual design for an institutional building, most famously a prison, developed by the English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham in the late 18th century. So essentially, this structure is made with the idea that prisoners can be watched, but they cannot see the watcher. The psychological effect is that there is an invisible presence of power imposed on the prisoners. And the idea is that this invisible hand will cause people to act in a certain way as determined by the watcher. And there are real pantopticons, but I think it's a very useful tool for us to think about when we look at digital surveillance and what it means to be watched and consumed and targeted, especially when you have companies like Peter Thiel's Palantir depending on this very technology to profit upon the exploitative collection of everything that we are, or most importantly, are perceived to be based on their narrative. Yay! Anyway, Massive Attack rules. I hope we see more art that challenges what we think or reminds us to think, because we need that. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!